If there's one thing that is made apparent as soon as possible in the Fallout series, it's that the new world is an unforgiving, seamlessly cruel one. From the more light-hearted things such as the dark humour, to the secrets and scares scattered around the place that should never have surfaced to begin with, or, in some cases, never come out from where they're trapped within. We find ourselves embellished in a world where technology was war-focused, and tranquility is now a foreign concept. A harsh new age for humanity, but with the same old unchanging wars. We see the skeletons of the past, sometimes quite literally, and the horrific things that happen throughout this radiation-tainted timeline we roam, as all that can be done at this point is gaze upon the brutality and eeriness of humanity's results from mutually assured destruction. I thought I'd compile a handful of these spooks from the earliest time we've seen the Wasteland to the latest, taking a closer look at this world that is beyond saving, and the interesting, and most of the time, harrowing stories and details it holds. The vast horrors of the Fallout Wasteland. It only really feels natural to start with the catalyst of many of the wickedness within the Wasteland. I can't talk about the lore or hidden details of Fallout and not mention this corporation. Vault-Tec are the epitome of how sinister corpos can be. Pre-apocalypse life was an era where war was a looming threat to the American dream all the time. As a result of a money-ruling capitalist society, just channeled my inner Joker there, a corporation was designed to exploit human psychology and profit off of the end of the world. Vault-Tec knows the war is at its peak, and they also know how to leverage that and wield the concept as a weapon itself to seamlessly attach everyone to the strings they are controlling. Their methods? Well, I'm sure there are hundreds of things that they've done behind the shadows, but their heaviest hitter are the vaults. These are a doomsday prepper's wet dream, or at least from the surface, and serve to protect, and I use that term loosely, the inhabitants. But they're hiding under the guise of the American dream, advertising and mascots to lure people into these blue and yellow prisons. About 90% of those vaults are used as experiments, where the dwellers stop being human to these guys and become unknowingly subject to the minds of the careless corporation, pushed, moved and observed like levers and buttons. Some of this was for scientific research, where have we heard that one before, and some were more of a, why not, let's do it for the bit, kind of mentality. Given their dark history, many of these vaults and all of the marketing behind Vault-Tec as a whole came across as trying too hard to seem positive, so much so that it starts to become uncanny. Many Vault-Tec products and videos showcase bright colours, hunky-dory catchphrases, and the most memorable, Vault Boy. They work above all classes of people, under the coat of the end of the world, and knowing that the evil company was fully anticipating this, waiting for their results, their profit, under a sadistic smile, makes seeing all of their marketing transfer a shiver to anyone that has done their homework about them. Knowing that behind the talks of rebuilding America and a smiling cartoon vault dweller, this was all a front. A thought-out plan to play their part in nuclear calamity. Worrying about the nuclear blast is one thing, but Vault-Tec are an entirely different beast. I find it fitting that in this Vault-Tec ad, there's a generic corpo Vault-Tec suit, stood there pitching the idea of the vaults and the safety they provide to this nuclear family, and whilst he's doing so, a mushroom cloud is behind him. I could be deep in this, I probably am, but it paints the picture as though the family don't have to worry about the nuclear blast straight away, as the morally bankrupt suit right in front of them has gotten to them first. He's literally stood overshadowing the blast, showing that what's right in front of them is a more imminent danger. That Vault-Tec has reached these victims first before the blast ever could have. Absolute cinema! This section may be brief, but I feel I needed to introduce this because keep it in your mind for the rest of this video. Whenever you see a torn poster of Vault Boy, any promise of well-being or safety or prosperity that this company will push, let this section be your dark reminder. I'd talk more about these guys, but I wouldn't want to spoil the surprise on its way. You'll see.
Seems perfect. But what if it's not?
When I say Swan Pond, it makes this sound like a pleasant area you'd like to go. And hey, maybe at one point that would have been a good idea, but I recommend not trying to go there now. And if you do, then make sure you pack in at least some Nuka-Colas, a huge gun, a couple of jets because you're an addict, 10 Molotovs, 3 proximity mines, an adorable German Shepherd, and 80 stim packs. I'm talking about the one in Boston, in Fallout 4. Swan's Pond seemed to be a tourist attraction in the state that was a nice little pond, and touched on some American history accompanied by some strangely evil looking swans. You can already tell something is off because warning signs have been strung up all around the area from other people that have probably visited that place and only just managed to make it out alive. Keep out. Danger, swan, the signs say. An odd warning, but it's something you should keep in mind before going there. That you were warned. When you arrive at the area, the first thing that will stand out is that it's empty. And look, it might be cliche to say, it's quiet. Too quiet, but this actually does draw out that feeling. Maybe it's the open area, or the fact that you'd expect to see something moving here, or anything to be happening. I'm sure some people are devastated there's no Subway Surfers or Family Guy clips there, but instead, it's lifeless and grimy. The bodies around the pond may catch your eye too, and when I was exploring this, it made me wonder what was suddenly gonna jump out at me, if anything at all. And that clicking noise isn't a malfunctioning microwave, it's the radiation setting off the Geiger counter in your Pip-Boy. This place has barrels of it around here, so if you feel something pat you on the back, it's just the third arm you've grown. And you've got a pretty solid chance of actually growing a third leg over here. There are fake swans that once stood alongside the real ones, being not only eye candy, but making the actual spectacles of nature stand out that much more. But now, they are all that's left, and it's nothing but a reminder of the life that was taken besides just humans. Swan's Pond is a shining, or more so gloomy, example of how Fallout's horror is so effective and really stands out to me. On the surface, it might sound similar to what I'm saying about Vault-Tec, with the contrast between happy and complete and utter annihilation. The difference is Vault-Tec were trying to put a mask over and cover up the absolute ruin of everything everyone once knew, whereas places like Swan's Pond just exist with it. This was supposed to be a happy place, as Codsworth once said, and from looking around, you could tell. But now this joy feels like it sits there with the fog of tragedy, intertwined to the point where it becomes strange to look at. These things are supposed to be happy and exciting and wondrous or relaxing, but it isn't. The tragedy took over, and now they exist alongside each other to give off this weird vibe that'll make your fight or flight sensors go off. Similar to looking at images of those abandoned theme parks you've probably seen, or reading Abandoned by Disney if you're a creepypasta veteran. The place was in fact too quiet, because if you're skulking around too much, disturbing the peace, the grey matter in my brain straight up just went to Persona 3 there. I need to go outside. Out of the lake will erupt a super mutant behemoth. With an intimidating, that sounds too tame, let me try that again, with a pant-staining presence as you watch the mutant tower over you, covered in the murky elements it's been residing in. It brandishes a huge anchor, resembling a mighty battle axe that someone like Gus would look at and say, nice. It has a curved wooden part of a boat as a makeshift hook arm, and is done in various parts of scrap such as the fake swans as armour. The loud roar he lets out is the cherry on top of this entrance. You know this isn't going to be an easy one, and after trying this at level 9, I came out of it a new man. A traumatised one. Once Swan has been game ended, you have time to rummage around and take anything of value like the pirate you are. It's not disrespectful if it was a skill issue. You can find several notes that upon being read, you'll discover that they were written from the behemoth, and he had the fitting name of Edgar Swan before he became that pond-dwelling beast. This guy was a worker of the Institute, a faction that were responsible for making synths and working towards teleportation and stuff. Swan stole some cigarettes, and he did not call Saul because his punishment was bad. He got subjected to harsh experiments that would try and make him stronger and more intelligent, and those notes go on to document his eventual decline, until he couldn't even put pen to paper, then turned into that. The experiment logs you can find go from 0 to 100 very quickly. Here's what day 1 says. So I nipped a few cigs. Big deal. Smart asses may run this place, but they can't just do whatever they want. I got rights. Trial worked out for me in the end. They agreed to probation. I stay inside for a month, write something every day, and they'll bring me all the food and water I want. They think this is punishment? Sure beats scrubbing floors all day. Then day 6. Should have known something was wrong when they came back for more tests. Every bone in my body aches. I'm on edge all the time. Jittery. can barely write, but my mind's just racing. Damn it, what's going on? What did they do to me? Onwards to day 14. My psychological evaluation seems to have stabilised. The medical team says my muscle mass has more than tripled since the experiment began, and my neural efficiency has improved markedly. This particular strain of modified FEV has been a remarkable success. I appear to have received all of the anticipated benefits without the typical adverse effects. My application to join the research team is awaiting the director's approval. Although further tests may be in order, I hope to be able to assist with my own experiment in the coming days. Then day 21. Sieges continue. After the second one this morning, I was ordered back to the observation lab for further study. My prognosis is poor. I made the discovery myself. The viral strain I was infected with is fundamentally unstable. My mental capacity peaked 2 days ago and has begun rapidly deteriorating. The seizures are just the beginning. Will they reject me like all the others? Then on his bed, the last note reads, "You are Swan." It seems like when he got kicked out from the Institute, he managed to have his notes with him before migrating to Swan Pond, where that would be his final resting place. See, the Institute is twisted. They act as though they're doing humanity a favour, but they've used synths to wipe out people who came together and disagreed with their beliefs. They had a program going on for over 100 years in which they kidnapped people from around the Commonwealth and tried turning them into super mutants. If robotic people weren't enough, this is a step over the line. No, a leap over the line. So the next time you're unfortunate enough to see a super mutant in Fallout 4, chances are this is one of the many unfortunate souls that had their humanity dismantled down by them. Connecting the dots, it looks like Mr. Swan was another stain on the bloodied record, one that seemed to have gone above their expectations. And so I think the cigarettes incident felt like an excuse just to subject this man to incomprehensible torture of the mind and body. And if any of these test subjects weren't killed, then they were let loose to wander the wastes. And for what? Some power trip? A skewed sense of ostentation floating around behind the eyes of the ones doing this to them? Until he gets put out of his misery, he's become nothing more than another apex predator of the Wasteland. Or a more fitting term would be a victim, savagely crushing those who step near this desolate pond, making more tragedies in the Wasteland. So just remember when you're wandering into here and discovering it for the first time, or if you're coming back more prepared to take him on, it's called Swan's Pond for a reason. Carl Sagan once said, "You have to know the past to understand the present." And what better way can that message be conveyed than going to a museum, right? Well, in Fallout 4, we have one. But it's a structure based around the history of witchcraft. This was a real thing between 1692 and 1693, where people would point the finger at others and claim them to be evil magic users. And the victim, obviously having no way to prove their innocence, were executed, as a growing paranoia spread through people back then of anyone they knew potentially being one of the dark arts. And when they were deemed guilty, were allegedly burnt at a stake or strung up on some rope for their outrageous crimes, like weighing the same as a duck. How dare they? And here we have a place to remind us of the cruelty of humans during the period of time where we are living through the cruelty of humans. Add the backdrop of a destroyed occultist looking building made out of cold stone bringing no warmth to this place, the fact that it's lit up at the entrance with one lantern, and deathly crows flying around it, and perching atop withered trees, and yeah, I don't want to learn about the past, because at that point it feels like the past in there would come alive and jump me. I don't think I need to be the one to tell you why this doesn't look particularly inviting, so let's go in and have a history lesson at this pit stop of the past on our merry adventures at the end of the world. We're just not going through the front door though. So you'll have to take this completely safe looking cellar entrance. But be careful not to trip over the mangled corpse there. This is our first sign that something is actually wrong here. We see the crows scurrying around it, as this deceased lady is now unwillingly committed to giving herself to the earth. On her body, a holotape is found.
Jeffries, Lee got the recorder working. So this the sort of detail you had in mind when you signed up for the Gunners? Hauling luggage from Lynn Woods for some robot butler? What was his name? Wellerton? Wallingham?
Not now, Private. Where's Connors? He's not at his post.
Oh, sorry, sir. The lieutenant said he found some tracks. Wanted to check them out. Private Martin.
Tracks? What track? What the hell is that?
Oh my... Connors! Where's the rest of him?
found us. Sergeant Lee, grab the case. Do not let that thing out of your sight. Everyone inside the museum, now!
Major! Major, what found us?
This details that the squad of gunners were set out to retrieve something that they didn't know the specifics of. Just that, it had to be obtained. Most of the group seem unaware. After being attacked by something loud and scary, they have to hide inside the Witchcraft Museum. And with that, in we go. You'll immediately hear a rumbling, along with some beastly grunts. There's no beating around the bush here. Something's up, so upstairs you go. On your way you'll hear the hollowed out building whimper, with small noises that echo around the rooms, which does a good job in making you not want to alert whatever it is that resides within the walls. Venturing further, the ruckus begins again, louder this time, and an effective jump scare, as we know that something is around and it's showing up again. We see cracks in the floorboard, and beyond them, you can just make out a mutilated body that's getting dragged away by that entity, resembling a sack of lifeless bricks or a limp Gmod character model. As we go on, there are remnants of children's belongings and school equipment, with what looks like a lounge area, finished with a pool table and a sofa, all of which have become stale with decay and dirt. There are reasonably fresh bodies lying around, much like the one we saw earlier, and they're part of the gunner squad. Even with the equipment we find on them, whatever happened, all their efforts weren't enough. They too have been viciously torn to pieces by what could only be described as a wild animal, just like all the other bodies. There's a creepy detail I just want to point out. Not only are there all those children's possessions around the place, but there's a desk in the corner and a skeleton sitting at it facing the wall. It looks like some sort of punishment, and they were there for so long, they actually died. What's odd though, is I don't think it has anything to do with the gunners. It genuinely looks like some sort of underground after school club was going on here. I can't really tell. It would explain all of the school equipment and children's toys and other people that were here. Anyway, let's get round here and we can... mannequins! Yeah, I don't think I need to say much here. This caught me off guard and I felt like I was being watched. They have followed me from World at War zombies to Black Ops 1 zombies to Black Ops 2 zombies and now to Fallout. These mannequins stand there so aimlessly, yet the greys look about them and the uncanny nature they radiate makes it seem as though they're planning to kill you or could move while your back is turned. They just don't play nice with our survival instincts considering how off they look. But when you look at them close enough, the mannequins of Fallout carry this sinister aura, and they wear a lot of it on that look on their faces, calculating and as though they're choosing to play dead. Now that I've got my revenge on those plastic invaders, it's time to go and meet whatever the hell the real threat is. At this point, the same level of paranoia as those at the witch trials is present, with the constant panic lodged in your head that you're in danger. Once we enter the next room, surprise surprise, another vanquished gunner. The bodies are piling up at this point. Next to this is our history tour. Mannequins are used to retell the stories of the witch trials, where any woman they suspected was off to Hogwarts too often was burned at the stake, with the crowd watching the cleansing of their town, as they'd call it. There are other parts of this too, with more mannequins at other exhibits, but because of how destroyed everything is, it's like we don't get the full context of, wait, if we're this far into the room, then where's the monster? Oh, found it. Our horror that's been stockpiling food is none other than a Deathclaw. A Jurassic-looking tyrant that is one of, if not the worst thing you could encounter in the Wasteland. A horned devil with a hard shell that is mighty in size and strength. They are apex predators of this new age, and now you're stuck in a room with one. And to make matters worse, this one is bigger than the normal bunch. It steadily stomps around as you witness its dominance through the cracks of the flimsy wood you hide behind. If you skulk over to the toilets, yeah, I'm gonna say it, more bodies can be found. One in particular stands out because we find a holotape next to him, surrounded by cracked Deathclaw eggs. Looking inside, you can see the dead embryo of one. Its young perished before they could be born. Dodged a bullet there. Except for one. An egg in pristine condition next to the body. This guy was called Sergeant Lee, and playing his holotape gives you this.
A nest full of Deathclaw eggs. A dozen, maybe more. Smashed to bits. Except this one. No wonder they wouldn't tell us what was in that case. If I'd known, I would have personally told the gunner bosses and that glorified liquor cabinet in Wellingham to take those Diamond City caps and stuff them. I guess we know why that Deathclaw tracked us all the way from Linwood's now. We stole our damn kids. Christ. Maybe if we just return the eggs. Oh, hey, Mama. You looking for this?
So, the curtain has been pulled back. The gunners were tasked with transporting Deathclaw eggs to someone, and Mama Deathclaw doesn't want to watch her kin be made into something out of delicious indulgence. So she's even more pissed.
You are proper cheating. Quick.
And now it's just you, the egg, and the Deathclaw in a tight, decrepit, run-down looking, creepy-ass room, and a decision to make. Are you going to return it to the nest, or make it into a mega-sized omelette? It's your decision to make. If only you can muster up the courage to step out from your hiding spot and make a run for the exit, which was that chain door from earlier. These mannequins on display up here, they're so destroyed and crude looking. It makes you wonder if someone else was lurking here and trying to restore it, if you will, by recreating these haunting scenes themselves with whatever is left around the wasteland. Because, yeah, look around, so much of the building has been destroyed, yet these mannequins didn't fall over. It's not like they're fixed into the ground or anything. Unless they're filled with tungsten, I've got nothing, except for someone that was lurking within these walls and tried to recreate these scenes, fix up the tour. But kudos to the Deathclaw for not knocking any of this over. It's nice to know she's a true history enthusiast. If the video gets enough support and I make a part 2 to this, there's most likely going to be a whole section dedicated to my plastic arch enemies here, because there is more than meets the eye. That's all I'm saying for now. If you thought this was weird, the mannequins, the huge Deathclaw that somehow got in here, no, because really, how did it even get in there? Wait until you see this next bit. Guys, you're gonna want to see this. If you can use console commands or have a jetpack, you can get up to the attic, and when you scan your eyes around, I think there really was someone else hiding here or something darker going on. All the same, what's in front of you is a skeleton on a table with an old looking dagger stuck in him, and he's surrounded by candles and a consumable in the game called mentats, which are described as by Fallout 2 as a nootropic that increases memory related functions and speeds other mental processes. This guy was either a complete junkie, since mentats are highly addictive, or whatever this ritual is, whatever it does, it can only be done by using external things to open up your mind. Open it up to deal with whatever supernatural forces were at play. To seek whatever it was waiting at the other side of that dagger. Maybe you could even call it witchcraft. This museum is creepy for so many reasons. There's the giant Deathclaw, which is something that made my soul nope the hell out of my body for a minute, but that aside, the dark retellings of the Salem witch trials, it's just as gritty to imagine as it is seeing the recreations. In this hollowed out shell of an educational tour down the path of humanity's way to feign doing the right thing, all presented in an off-putting way that looks unusual, unnatural, and weirdly disturbing. And it's great how this place tells you two stories, adding to that dark tone. One of the humans being the predator, and one of them being the prey. Both are weaved through each other and secured within this one desolate gothic nightmare of a building. You're given chills about the savage past shown as a scarily still story, and terrified about the immediate danger of the present, trying to survive as best you can, and having to face two entirely opposites of terror, as those who set foot in here will get an extra surprise with their craving of knowledge for witchcraft. There are many monsters that are worth being afraid of in this wasteland, but imagine a super mutant that is built like a brick shithouse, feels about as wide as a dreadnought, and is 12 feet tall. And it's rocking some of the most foreboding looking power armor in the entire series. Yeah, that's Frank Horrigan. A walking metal stack of biceps. He's the main antagonist of Fallout 2, and although this game has aged quite a bit, the presence of Horrigan has stood tall through the years and never fails to intimidate you. Whenever you're in dialogue with him, because he's so tall, he literally looks down at you, which yeah, intimidating as hell. And even the thought of him is almost overbearing in your mind. Actually, seeing him ticks all the boxes of what a frightening monster in an unknown wasteland should be, in my opinion. But how is this sausage even made? and let me tell you, it is one rather big sausage. Before he was this, Frank used to be human, believe it or not. Described as very tall, although a specific number isn't given, a straight up beefcake, showing absurd strength, and loyal to a fault. He served under the Enclave as a secret agent, and the Enclave, for those who don't know, are a faction in Fallout composed of slimy, gloopy goblins from a hidden government that existed before the bombs fell, and continued to do so after the fact since they knew the destruction was on its way, and so they prepped accordingly. They were a higher power, above the rulers that we see in front of us, much like those conspiracy theories you've heard at some point, and their goal of the Wasteland, their vision, is to keep that power and eradicate anything that isn't a pure, radiation-free human. Back to the Frank machine, he didn't seem all up there in Sanity Town. As on a mission he was on, he had a psychotic episode that removed his high rank. What it was that he did, we don't know. Now that he's back to a level 1 crook, he eventually went on a mission that got him entangled with some forced evolutionary virus vats, which is known for creating super mutants, invented as an answer to biological warfare that ended up infecting him and others that were forced to work there. He was sent back to the Enclave after this, but not for treatment or a nice happy retirement. They instead went hard on him with twisted experiments as his courtesy with Fallout now, and as time went on, this all made him ridiculously angry and violent, going on to become the first ever behemoth due to all the FEV. Although Frank wasn't just one of those, he was more than a behemoth. He was the biggest super mutant behemoth ever. The scientists of the Enclave were done with him, and instead of deciding to old yeller him, they decided to brainwash him.
Wake up. Wake up.
To sculpt his mind into becoming their pet operative, to do whatever they needed him to do, whenever it was needed, and in his mind, he is still their loyal pedigree, like he always was, despite them actually hating mutants. Try not to choke on that irony. He was given his own custom-made power armor because he was so shredded, as well as strapped with technology that made him walking warfare, and, due to his low intelligence stat, was easy to manipulate. In his mind, that's no different to mincemeat, he thinks the Enclave are real ones, that he should be serving them and carrying them in his hulking arms into the future of the Wasteland. He has become death, the result of 2 excruciating years of torture. His integrity and morals are non-existent now, acting and looking far detached from the very species he used to be, human. I don't really know if it would count to cover modded content, but I feel this does a good job in showing the true scale and overpowering force that Frank comes out with. In Fallout 3, someone made a mod where you could fight an elite Frank Horrigan clone, so it's basically just him. And even simply watching the gameplay here of the mod in question shows how dominating and truly beast-like his presence is. The weight of him, the height of him, all of it in this mod shows what I'm trying to describe here. If you saw that, it'd make your bowels churn like a cement mixer. I've mentioned who he is and, you know, that he's a big, strong, bad boy, but what has he done that's so bad? What is he capable of doing? This guy carelessly and effortlessly shot runaway enclaves, a father, a mother, and a child. Acting as though they were nothing more than a spilled beverage, he wiped them away. And once he's done killing that family, he literally zigzags off the screen just to style on them that bit more. There is nothing more terrifying than that in a villain, let alone a monster, or a human, or even some strange amalgamation between the two. A Fallout 2 dev apparently said that the only reason Frank was able to be beaten was so that the story could end. Really let that absorb. The only reason you could tackle such a dangerous threat is because they let you. Because in lore, he is an unstoppable force of nature. How much more dreadful can that get? By the rules of this universe, he's all but mortal, a Grim Reaper that stomped its way out of hell. And the only time this disaster could have been stopped was because the rules of the Fallout universe essentially had to be broken. I'm also gonna clarify, this is a rumour. I actually did think this was true, but the more I looked into it, the more there's no source for this. But to its credit, I think it does have something going for it. For how powerful they've made him, and then for the sake of the story, I'm sure you could speculate it's something that the devs would have had to have compromised with to finally make it to the credits. So whether it's true or not, I think it's food for thought all the same. The idea of never being able to stop something so powerful and overwhelming is fundamentally horror. Frank Horrigan is this universe's Atom Smasher, Fallout's Darth Vader even. This was a man that had some of the worst luck in the Wasteland. As he shoots, crushes, and tears his way through his obstacles in this dire world, you quickly come to realise he's nothing more than a monster built to be vicious and efficient. He punches the head off of a Deathclaw that became mutated and is begging for mercy. He one-tapped it.
Fatality.
Do you remember the big Deathclaw I was shitting myself over in the Witchcraft Museum? He literally punched it so hard its head came off. This blood feud is so normal for him. He literally laughs at the weakness of humans. When someone threatened him about the Chosen One putting a stop to things, he brutally disposed of them and then said to the boys behind him,
Well, it's a little past 12. Anyone up for lunch?
Score. I'm there. Yeah, count me in on that.
That is cold. And I feel Frank, as a concept, this big, practically indestructible force, synergizes perfectly with the Enclave. He is everything they would have wanted. An empty, always obedient tool that will always get results and is their master key to opening any door they want. This evil faction can do just about anything they please. And Mega Man over here is that puppet on their strings. What's just as scary as the vicious freak of nature in armour? The ones giving him the orders behind it. It becomes quickly apparent that the developers have gone through every hurdle, jumped over every obstacle to make Horrigan feel so far detached from a human. His voice doesn't even sound human when he's telling you it's time to die. His armor makes him barely look human, and even then he's mutated more than most things in the Wasteland, so even the appearance doesn't make him feel like a person. And this also includes his callous nature, acting more like a predator playing with its food than a guy on the job. And with all of that, looking deep into those red mech's eyes can remind you of the void that resides within him, and that even imagining those eyes further beyond that helmet will tell you that there is truly nothing left in his head or his heart. No longer human in any sense of the word.
You've gotten a lot farther than you should have. But then you haven't met Frank Horrigan either. Your ride's over, Mutie. Time to die.
You've heard of the tales before, haven't you? The myths of a creature that has long, slender limbs that dangle from its torso, like a scarecrow's spangly arms. The sharp claws and eyes of a feral mongrel driven by a primal hunger. A hunger only satiated by human flesh. It's created from an old curse, where if someone decides to eat another fellow person like they're a nice juicy steak, they become such a horrible sounding monster. The Wendigo are an old Appalachian cryptid brought about by an old curse allegedly stemming from evil magic, rooting from Algonquian folklore. I've butchered that word, haven't I? What a Wendigo looks like and the specifics on how they're made has changed over the years, but what they all have in common is that they have a relentless craving for our skin, and when someone resorts to cannibalism is when the Wendigo is made. Around that area of North America, they're said to roam the labyrinth-like forests. At first, the tales were supposed to be something to scare children to behave and consider not eating each other, just normal urban legend origin story stuff. And although we don't have definitive proof of the existence of Wendigos in the real world, in the universe of Fallout, there very well is something more. There are several appearances and cases of the Wendigo spread over what remains of Appalachia. Covering them all would be way too long for this video, so I'm gonna narrow it down a little. On Fallout 76, whilst doing whatever it is you're doing in Appalachia, we'll just pretend that you are actually looking for the overseer of your vault.
You know what's crazy about that? I don't give a shit.
You can stumble across a lone motel. It's nothing special at all, simply another humble place that got a doomsday dress up, and on a table outside, a note awaits you. It's a newsletter for those mythology hunters, going on about a sheep-like cryptid that goes by the name of a sheep squatch. I'll let you piece together what it's a combination between. Before the war, it was rumoured to have been real, and now anyone brave enough to embark on this hunt, out in the scorched Appalachian woods, will be rewarded with seeing something as fascinating as it is abominable. I know this section is titled Wendigo, but stay with me. We trace a radio signal, do some orientation, and go to some coordinates, and you'll be met with a little shack and Scoot's terminal. Whilst I was trying to access his personal files to see where he was going, I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. We learned that not only did Scoot have some adorable cats, but that he was also eager to look for the sheepish devil and had previously tried, but nothing of note came up. However, that's not to say the sheep squatch isn't out there. That wouldn't be real. right? Whilst that search has been coming up empty-handed, there is, however, another investigation he's been documenting. That of the Eldritch. This actually has some leads. As we see, he tracked a radio signal pointing towards an abandoned church that got trapped within the jaws of the earth via a sinkhole. It opens a curious itch for him that needs to be scratched. This must be where he took off to. So we finally got to the church. It's away from the road and looks like it fell pretty far down into the world. The trees shadow its existence in a shady gloom, as the ever-present equalizer that is nature demanded she cradle this church. It's as dilapidated and decrepit as you'd expect a creepy church in the Appalachian forest to be. No surprises there. At the bottom of the stairs from the bell tower, there's a dead guy to greet you inside, which seems unrelated to this whole ordeal, but it can throw you off a bit when entering. The hunt for Scoot continues. We can find notes scattered around this narrow tunnel as we not only go deeper into the ground, but into Scoot's downfall. He got stuck here and was documenting his survival, thoughts and experience. He broke his leg upon falling in this pit. Day 1. This is Scoot. If you're stumbling across this note or my body, just leave it. Maybe someone who knows me will find it. I fell down this sinkhole and broke both of my legs. I'll be dead soon. Please, feed my cats. Day 2. Not dead yet, and not alone either. Someone else fell down here before me. His name's Kevin and he's some kind of park ranger. He knows all sorts about survival, showed me where to gather drinking water and moss that I could eat. We've been eating bugs too, need that protein. He said that people from his division would be searching this area any day now. His leg eventually healed though, but not the way a leg is supposed to. Day 24. No one is coming. My leg is healed, but not in a good way. Kevin and I tried to work together on splints, but the wood down here is too moist. Just crumbles. I just spend my days crawling through the mud, eating bugs, drinking dirty water. I'm going to die down here. Well, that got pretty depressing. And a begrudgingly long 2 months later, a man from the Gorman's Raider faction called Mickey, once again, fell down the pit. He said that the only way they could survive down here was to resort to consuming human flesh, and that he can show Scoot how to survive that way. But from what we're about to read, it doesn't seem like he has much choice. Day 82. Someone else fell in. His name's Mickey. We had some tremors, shifted the earth a lot. Mickey came tumbling through the sunlight. Mickey says crazy things, but I'm beginning to believe him. Said the world is shit, it's over, said he's in a gang of chefs, and keeps telling me there's only one way we survive, and he'll teach me. I don't know how I feel about Mickey. Oh no. Mickey's in the... Oh god, he's gone to the dark side. Day 90. Been thinking a lot about Ray and Laura. Never got to visit their new place over in Welch. God, I hope they're okay. Wish I got to tell Ray about me debunking the sheep squatch, but did he know something that I didn't? I can't get that thought out of my mind. He begins losing his grasp of time, not knowing if it's been 100 days, 200, or 1,000. It's a seemingly small detail, but have you ever been in a situation where there aren't windows or clocks nearby, and any way to even tell how much time has passed? It doesn't even have to be for long either. It boggles your brains, and for us, it's a slightly confusing inconvenience. For Scoot down here, where it's for extended periods of time, I can only imagine this to be more mentally taxing than watching the Minecraft movie trailer. I always knew I wasn't crazy for liking you story mode. And a begrudgingly long 2 months later, a man from the Gorman's Raider faction called Mickey, once again, fell down the pit. He said that the only way they could survive down here was to resort to consuming human flesh, and that he can show Scoot how to survive that way. But from what we're about to read, it doesn't seem like he has much choice. If you know who the Gorman faction are, then you know exactly where this is going. And if you don't, then, stay tuned. Day 100, 200, 1000. Dear Lord, Mickey killed Kevin. He choked the life out of him while he was sleeping. He said Kevin needed to die for us to live. I can't do this. Someone help me. He said we had to. He said Mickey made me... I'm so sorry. Someone please help me. I'm so sorry. Mickey Homer Simpsoned Kevin to death, where our boy and Mick made a meal for two out of Kevin the carcass. Oh god. We get to the bottom of the tunnel, and there's one more note, next to a crude sacrificial knife, and a demonic, paganist-looking altar overseeing it, fitted with a skull that looks like some sort of antelope, and coming down from the coarse roof are bones and skulls strung together, acting as decorations or effigies. Picking up the note gives you this. A new day. Kevin was weak. Mickey was weak. I am strong. I took all their strength from them. I see the daylight now. I don't want to leave. I don't need to. I will wait here. Wait for the weak to find their way to me. I will consume their strength. I will become stronger. I will survive this world. It's clear that the same man that went down there is not the same one we're looking for now. After putting the paper down, a spindly, fleshy cretin pounces at you, trying to rip you apart. I managed to defend myself, and to be honest, I think I handled it quite well. Oh god. Jesus! Oh man. We found Scoot. Mission failed successfully, I guess. He turned into a Wendigo because of the cannibalism, and now lives here. There's no sign of Mickey around the cave, meaning Scoot must have developed a newfound appetite for his own, and the Wendigo curse consumed him. Not so unlike how he devoured his comrades. Around this fiendish nest are skeletons that have been collected, as every inch of flesh has been consumed by that monster. Picked clean. Not too dissimilar to how a human would lick a plate clean. He would patiently wait for more victims to get lost down here, before crawling out from the shadows and devouring them. Now a twisted animal that ominously basks in its dark corner, waiting for someone to have the unluckiest last day of their life. All out of sight, where no one would look for them. The Wendigo has been one of my favourite cryptids since I first witnessed them in Until Dawn, and now seeing their portrayal by Bethesda in Fallout, I was more than satisfied. A few more appearances include the giant Wendigo that can be fought during an endgame level event, and it has a real unique look. I can't talk too much about this one because even that thing looking at me would kill my fragile level 10 ass, but I can appreciate something that would make someone drop a bomb in their britches. There's an audio drama about the Wendigo you can go and track down. It's a fun listen and a noteworthy nod to them. It wouldn't surprise me if it was based off of a true story, considering that they have existed before the Fallout War. Then there's the Wendigo Cave, which I feel scammed from. When I went down there, I saw mostly Mirelurks and feral ghouls. The Wendigo in there though was dangerous. Mutated by the radiation and still starving, it basks in this cave where he ate his former friend, who was in a faction by the name of the Gormans, a raider group that were cannibals and, ironically, had a code of not eating their own like a pit bull named Cupcake around an unsupervised child. These vicious things are a gruesome inhabitant of the post-apocalypse, given the stakes of this new age, and there are bound to be many more Wendigo under the thick trees of Appalachia, waiting with their boundless appetite. We've seen a lot of the obliterated globe here, the seemingly never-ending deserts, the radiation-filled towns and funky forests. Then you remember that 70% of the world is made up of water. It's touched upon the least, but what are the oceans like? How have they been affected, and what, if anything, resides down in the deep? Not much is given about Fallout 7 Seas, and this only goes to make it all the more mysterious. That doesn't mean that Bethesda didn't try to expand it though. We see some aquatic creatures called Mirelurks that are mutated crabs, or should I say, some of them are. There are noticeable inconsistencies with these creatures that lead to the conclusion that their name is actually used as an umbrella term for the whole species, that being water-residing life that was changed via radiation into what we see now. Take these Mirelurks that you can see in Fallout 4 and 76, this is the default Mirelurk if you will, the Mirelurk foot soldier that we all know, and then here's one of them that's also in Fallout 4 and 76 called the Mirelurk king. These differences are huge. To start with the Mirelurk king here, they're a mutated frog of some sort that looks as threatening as they do slimy. Their claws are honed, teeth are jagged, and the spikes on them are webbed to mold a nightmare. Then we got the normal Mirelurk, a completely opposed look to the one we just saw. This one looks to be a mutated horseshoe crab, and when you see them IRL, adorable. This one is a disgusting mutant where its droidical looking ass was spat out as some disfigured lobster probably. The sheer size of them is what makes these ones so off-putting, alongside their dense, grubby looking limbs and bug looking faces, giving you a way too close close-up of the beasts they are. Then the last one, Fallout 3. These are the most off-putting ones. Yep, you win, Fallout 3 Mirelurks. Bethesda did such a good job capturing the look of the average night shift worker after 2 months into the job. They take on a strangely human-like appearance, like too human-looking. I mean, why does he have abs?
Squidward, try to imagine him in his underwear. Oh no, he's hot!
Which is what dazzles their presence to be so uncomfortable and threatening. They sometimes have glowing yellow eyes like I just jumped into Kino de Toten, and have scaled armour and those same sharp claws and spikes. There may be a similar mutation to the ones in 4 and 76. These ones just look too human, it's weird. My point for the Mirelurks lies within how menacing they look and behave, and confirming to us, giving us a small insight into what the apocalypse has changed the smaller things like the crabs and frogs around the shores and in ponds into. Straying far from whatever they were originally supposed to look like, and these freaks are what splash around in the shallow end. As for the deeper area, that's where it gets even darker. The smoking gun that gives us the clearest answers to the lower depths is some cut content that was supposed to be in Fallout 4. At Bunker Hill, you can come across 2 conversing caravan workers. One of them mentions that their grandpappy saw something big and foreboding out in the seas, and how she's heard rumours about a ghoul whale swimming around the harbour in Boston that's been dubbed the name Old Peg.
You know, my rifle belonged to my grandpappy. Bravest son of a bitch that walked the wealth. That's a fact. He used to make the odd cap back in the day by gathering Mirelurk eggs by the beach.
Bullshit.
No, it's good money if you're quick enough or good with a gun. And he was both. But he stopped doing it for good the day he saw Old Peg. With his own 2 eyes. Old Peg? Is that supposed to mean something? You don't know of Old Peg? You've covered enough miles to know firsthand that radiation ravages all living things in its own way. But no one wonders about the deep blue sea. So one day, my grandpappy was egging. It was a foul day. Fog so thick you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. He was stumbling along and then he heard a tremendous clamoring. From the ocean. Like nothing he'd ever heard before or since. He stood still for a long time. The fog cleared for a brief moment, and that's when he saw the outline of the great behemoth. Massive. Bigger than anything you or I will ever see. Old Peg. A giant blue ghoul whale. A ghoul whale? Yeah. As the fog gathered, he saw that great beast emerge back into the deep, and my grandpappy fled for the first and last time in his life. Ask any of the old-timers, and they'll all agree. Something ancient and terrifying haunts the sea. The ghoul whale is real. Old Peg, right outside the harbor. Dark and ominous things swim the deep.
The description, ghoul whale, is an eye-opening one. It shows that the radiation, the plague of this atomic war, has managed to spread down to the deep. You could chalk that dialogue up to some food for thought, a little campfire story to jumpstart some chills. But you'd be wrong. Very wrong. Our next lead is in one of the Fallout 4 DLCs, Far Harbor, which is basically the make everything in Fallout creepy DLC, so there's more to this ghoul whale than that one quote. Adding on to this knee-knocking anecdote, along the shores of this island, set in a small, shadowy fishing town, skeletons can be found of huge whales that have been washed up and now bask in the sand and are caressed by the waves. And given the size, they're hard to miss. Continuing to inspect the shores here, we can see these ghoulified dolphins that look reasonably freshly washed up and dead. On their own, these don't look like something you'd want in the waters with you. And even going toe-to-toe against one of these, I can imagine would be almost certain death. Not sure how they died though. It could have been they got washed up on the shore, or given the wounds in some of them, maybe this was old Peg's doing. Remember, as Liam Neeson once said, there's always a bigger fish. And this also gives us extra evidence to suggest that, yeah, further down in the deeper regions of the ocean, the radiation has reached the life down there. And so if we've got ghoulified dolphins washing up, I don't think old Peg being alive, or any other ghoul whales for that matter, is out of the question. Found in the game files, there was a scrapped mission called 20 Leagues Under the Sea, an honourable nod to the 1866 novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Seas, in which a troop of people hunt a sea monster that's a giant narwhal. The quest image can be viewed, and what's more, you can even see the animation too, and I love how this looks. It gives us a good indication about how this mission will play out, and paired with the book it's referencing, it's safe to say the sole survivor would have been having to turn this aqua devil to chum. Vault Boy here is trapped with it looming around him, and that's most likely how the quest would feel. Trapped in the suffocating waves, feeling isolated, afraid, but finding out you're not actually alone. Under the waters of this game, unused buildings can be found that go to show how far along this idea was to being in the final cut. And although there's nothing inherently scary about this, given its unfinished, empty, destitute state, being here feels like a liminal plane of existence. There's even an unfinished Vault 120 that was meant to make it in here and was most likely going to play a bigger part in the mission, and would be fully explorable. The seas are pitch black and cloudy looking, which on its own is enough to trigger that primal anxiety in us humans. Having a freak of nature like the ghoul whale spiraling around you in one of Vault-Tec's most peculiar and desolate tombs would sure as hell be the showstopper. Also uncovered from the game files are textures for a giant squid, which I'm going to assume, because it's Fallout, the marine biology would totally be living up to its name, and be a towering tentacled leviathan. The textures here look so unpleasant, and I can only begin to imagine how this Splatoon reject would have filled a substantial amount of space in this seemingly endless murky void. It may have even been hostile, or just something to humble you and pass by, to remind you that just like before the apocalypse, and even more so now, this is not your world. Even being here, you're way in over your head. The ghoul whale does in fact have a model, and this is what it looks like. That is one of the most demonic sea creatures I've ever seen. It's not even like it's the most creative design ever, but its pale, sickly skin, and the evil look it has to it, and of course its sheer size, surrounded by darkness, brings out that otherworldly nature it possesses. And the dense snout and dead inside yet sharp eyes convey clearly that it's not to be taken lightly. The dry deserts and charred forests are all we can venture across in the Fallout series. What made this cut content worth covering is that there isn't much known about the ocean of this universe. We know that cryptids like the Wendigo and sheep squatchers did exist pre-war, and still do post-war, so this same thing very well could have translated over to the dark shores, given what's been cut from Fallout 4. It provides us with only a glimpse into that whole different world. The lack of any concrete knowledge about the watery realm also keeps us on our toes, and adds a deeply unsettling thirst to know more about what could be swimming around. It might be a bit cliche, but the mystery is so prominent even now, and I think is what helps keep this alive, as it's what makes not only for good horror pieces, but good stories when brandished for effect. And I can't tell if Bethesda have done this on purpose or not. Either way, the withholding of information and the remnants of cut content left an impactful mark on me. Our ignorance about such a huge part of this version of Earth, despite having so much of it really well documented on wikis and stuff, creates that discomfort in our brains. And given the anomalies paddling in the kids pool, like the Mirelurks, it makes us chatter our teeth like Scooby-Doo characters on Adderall when lending thought to the deep dark. The content we have seen is already nightmare fuel. Given the radiation too, this doubles the possibilities of how alien it is down there. It's so unfamiliar, so scary, but right under your feet, and always surrounding you. Those hideous lurkers you've thought of at one point or another when pondering what could be below the waves, may just exist in this harrowing, radiated underworld. Found amidst the Mojave Desert in New Vegas lies the first vault we're covering here. It's that of Vault 11. You know, it's good to see Vault-Tec's efforts have finally paid off. hang on a minute. This is gonna be brutal, isn't it? Etched into the side of a large hill hides the now hollow Vault 11 at the end of a tunnel, coming off as a gateway to a new land. Like how Alice stumbled down the rabbit hole, the courier will realise this feels far detached from humanity in many ways. Into the mouth of the beast. Once you get in the giant tin can, straight away it presents its skeletons to you. But not all of them. 4 bodies lay there right at the entrance. They had their faces pressed up against freedom and they died, like here right at the entrance. What happened to these guys? It makes you ask a scroll's worth of questions straight off the bat. The vault is clearly abandoned and like most vaults, has been for a long time. I think it's easy to forget, but in many of the Fallout games at least over 200 years has passed since the initial boom of the nukes, except for Fallout 76, which is like only 25 years after. But this first step into the rabbit hole is not the beginning of it. We're burrowing in from the end of the story, as what appears to be the case in this audio recording in the entrance terminal that can be downloaded.
Are we really gonna do this? It's open, we could just leave.
I couldn't, not after that.
We don't deserve to leave. A shining example. That's what it called us. But we did what we were supposed to. Not by a long shot. Anybody would have done what we did.
You ask me? That's exactly the problem. Now let's get on with this.
I'll go first. Wait. People should know what happened. They could learn from it. If there's anyone out there at all, I hope they never have to find out. Ready, Harry? Yeah. No, wait!
Moving on through the vault and making sure not to trip over that femur, you'll see the dimly lit halls, and coated around the walls are posters beckoning for your vision. They are everywhere, as though a madman had too much jet next to his printer and went crazy. These posters are promoting an election campaign, seemingly between members of the vault for who should be the next overseer, the leader of the vault. These aren't just posters, they're propaganda, designed to sway the dweller's choice of who to vote for as overseer. In any other somewhat functioning vault, this would be completely normal, but this is Vault 11. See, most vaults had some sort of social experiment behind them, and I'm not talking about the 2016 YouTube kind. Their motives are often never shared to the civilian dwellers. Vault-Tec themselves invited its population into Vault 11 with one of these experimental gimmicks. These elections we're seeing have the opposite effect of what the concept would normally do. Instead of putting that person being voted for in a more comfortable and stable position, well favoured and praised, they'd be sacrificed to the Vault-Tec megacorp. Why did they do that to each other? Because once they got in there, the bunker's main computer system told them they had to, and that if they did not comply, they would all be killed.
Greetings, Vault 11. You need to sacrifice someone to me because I said so. If not, you will all die. L plus ratio plus skill issue.
A classic get rid of one, save hundreds dilemma. The candidate in question does not want to be part of the Vault's election, and so these posters are thrown together and stapled to walls for everyone to see, with reasons as to why someone should be sacrificed. Kinda sounds like Twitter. We see a poster saying, "I hate Nate." And there's also one that's got "I hate Nate," but it's just got the N scribbled out and replaced with a K, so "I hate Kate." To all you Nates and Kates watching out there, I don't hate you, it's not personal. This is going to be important for later, so keep it stored away in your brain. The effective part about this imagery is the way the posters add vibrancy to the vaults, and glaze over everywhere along these destitute walls like how a spider covers an area in its silk. They add the appealing designs and colours to the blank wall, but ironically, what's actually on the posters and how many of them have been put up makes it have a dark and unhinged look, like you can see the desperation plain as day, to get anyone sacrificed but themselves. Through the rest of the metal catacomb, the insects have found their way in and you'll stumble into them with haste. Giant praying mantises and supersized rats litter the rooms, feasting on what little flesh the bones of the dwellers may still have clinging on them. It's their vault now, and unless you play around with pest control, it'll remain theirs. And really, they're insects and vermin. But extra, what more is there to say? Snooping around more, we uncover rooms and more posters. These ones though show propaganda for different factions, localized within this vault, and by the end of this expedition, you'll be sick of seeing them. There were the Allied Service Workers block, the United Technicians block, Human Dignity block, Divine Will block, the Utilitarian block, and the Justice block. Don't worry, you don't have to keep all those names crammed between your ears. The key takeaway from this is to show the huge divide in the population, all with their own solution to the impossible predicament they find themselves in, and the way it should be ran. There's an election hall, where inhabitants would gather like fish in a barrel to hear who will be condemned to whatever it is that happens to them. The Overseer's office is looming overhead in the election hall, so as the new Overseer sacrifice is being announced, it's almost as though the impending, sizable structure is watching too, waiting with its jaws open for its next victim. All we can gather is if you're having to stay in that office, it doesn't look like it's going to be a good sign. The adrenaline and anxiety that must have built up in these people, not just once they step foot in the room, but the several long nights before being consumed by the reality that their life might have a man-made expiration date. This election room that caused so much panic is empty now, and the vacancy of this hits hard, especially given that there's now no one around, or no one breathing air anyway. This room, in addition to the posters to vote for an overseer, spells out that this wasn't just a mob of people pushing someone into an overseer position, but was turned into a whole democracy. Although the concept is still bad since mostly innocent human life is having to be thrown away, whilst you defend Vault 11, you'll see that it gets even worse, and so does this story. The lower regions of the vault are darker, and there's still no trace of any alive dwellers. Sandbags and ammo crates are littered around like you just walked onto a battlefield. The heavy doors, fortified walls, and suspiciously large machinery down here of the atom punk aesthetic makes these lower areas force themselves onto you, even more claustrophobic than the already tight upper levels. Fighting a war down here looks like it would have been rough. Notice how I said war, with the amount of sandbags, skeletons, and Home Alone traps around here. It's clear this wasn't just a duel, it was an ongoing frantic flurry of firefights. Somehow, the inhabitants got into a civil war that was started, fought, and ended down here. I guess it saves them needing to be buried. Democracy wasn't entirely fair game down here. Like a lot of politics, it can get corrupt. In the interest of self-preservation and disgusting gratification, a couple of members from the Justice Bloc, remember these guys call themselves the Justice Bloc, did something truly abhorrent. Life was going on in Vault 11, the citizens offered up their fellow man that after a vote, the Vault ate them up and the Overseer elections kept repeating. A man by the name of Nathan, or just Nate, Stone, was about to be elected, and a lot of this was put on by the Justice Bloc because he was winning too many games of poker. Sure. Which is the most hot fuzz reason for someone to be sent to their doom I've ever heard. Remember, these are the ones with the most people, so when it comes to a democracy, it's the quantity. More people equals more power. His wife, Kate Stone, talked with Roy Gottlieb, the leader of the Justice Bloc, and tried to convince them to save her husband from the overwhelming mass voting. He said he would if she would provide him and the Justice Bloc with not so safe for work favours. A month passed, as Kate did their bidding to protect the one she loved so dearly, just for the Justice Bloc to turn round and voted Nate out anyway. This explains the I Hate Nate posters. Kate, who was defiled and felt like a part of her was nicked and cracked, decided to go against the system and bring a revenge to the Justice Bloc that I can only describe as John Wick going against the high table.
But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
She began murdering the members of the Justice Bloc that did her wrong, one by one, stripping them of their one trump card, numbers. People were also against her at this point, assumingly the Justice faction, and began crossing out the Nate posters to change them to I Hate Kate. After Kate was out there soloing the corrupt faction, the current Overseer closed the elections, and made it so that whoever the imposter was, that is not an Among Us reference, they'd become the next Overseer. She did the biggest, brainiest play and self-reported, turning herself in, and as her new position of Overseer, she could write the rules before being fed to the Vault. Mission completed. Nate was safe, but she still had a loose end to tie up. With her new position, she changed the election to an RNG gamble, making it fair by the Vault's computer randomly selecting someone. This saves the corrupt politics from constantly infecting the votes. The Justice Bloc weren't too happy about losing their long-standing power.
She can't do this. It's done. We're done. Nothing's done. She's got the authority. The only thing she can't do is change her own fate. Nothing says she can't change the selection process for future overseers. I say she can't. You shouldn't have toyed with her like that, Roy. We still have the majority. We don't vote for anything anymore. I'm not talking about voting. What then? You want to have a sit-in? A hunger strike? Not exactly. Maybe march into her office with torches and pitchforks? Yes. Come on. I mean it. What? Start a revolution? Laws don't outlast their governments. Roy, all we have to do is wait until someone from Justice Block gets picked for overseer. Then we have them change the law back. There won't be any blocks after the new overseer is picked tomorrow. Everyone's going to move on. By the time we've reformed, who knows if we'll still be in the majority? We can hold the block together. You don't know that. Besides, what if the computer picks you? What if it picks me? And your solution is to start shooting? Not if we don't have to. Look, we arm up. We go to the lower floors, take some strategic targets. Power, food, water. Just until she turns authority over to us. The other blocks won't support it. They're tired of us having the power. We have the majority. We don't need them. This isn't a vote, Roy. They'll fight back. They've never had the nerve. Hell of a way to test it.
In a fit of enmity, they decided to arm up and start a civil war in the vault against everyone else. One last attempt to assert their dominance. The ammo crates, traps and sandbags thrown around, as well as the general state the place is in having been turned upside down, act as a morbid set dressing decorated in bones and blood, telling us a story of a gruesome war. The last of the gunshots died down, and there were only 5 people left. Luckily, Fortnite didn't exist in the Fallout universe, so they didn't try to be the last one alive for that sweet Battle Pass XP. The remaining 5 decided to just go down with this ship. Wait out the timer until the Vault computer would do whatever it is it's going to do to finish them off. The clock ticked on, they waited, in this dreary battleground that was supposed to be a sanctuary, and the computer answered their patience.
Congratulations, citizens of Vault 11. You have made the decision not to sacrifice one of your own. You can walk with your head held high, knowing that your commitment to human life is a shining example to us all. And to make that feeling of pride even sweeter, I have some exciting news. Despite what you were led to believe, the population of Vault 11 is not going to be exterminated for its disobedience. Instead, the mechanism to open the main vault door has now been enabled, and you can come and go at your leisure. But not so fast. Be sure to check with your overseer to find out if it's safe to leave. Here at Vault-Tec, your safety is our #1 priority.
There it is. They were never going to be killed for not sacrificing someone. They never actually needed to send some unfortunate soul to a terrible fate. Not even one person needed to be disposed of. None of this had to happen. Imagining what that had to have been like, hearing that smarmy, corporately happy voice scatter around the vaults from the hall's PA system after watching everyone you knew get offed. Surviving with gallons of bloodshed for nothing must have hit like a boulder on a toothpick. This is one of the biggest ball kickers in Fallout, yet simultaneously one of the greatest examples of dark humour Oblivion have ever injected into this series. It is written like a joke. But what's at stake and all that's happened makes it impossible to laugh. They managed to press just the right buttons to make the player super uncomfortable after that. It's poetic, and one hell of a way to get to a punchline. The insane amount of guilt someone would feel, the hindsight shaking you awake that it could have been avoided, would be enough to make anyone's sanity snap, and for some, even push them to the brink of... Oh. The vault door has opened. A decision was made by those remaining 5, and it wasn't a fun game of laser tag. But I said at the beginning there were 4 bodies, remember? From the audio recording, one of them, seemingly the sole survivor, if you will, of Vault 11 decided to carry that weight with him and go on a crusade around the Mojave Wastes, warning everyone and telling them the grisly tale of Vault 11. hang on. We've been covering this vault and its dubious ongoings inside and out, yet we don't know what happened to the unlucky winners of the elections. In the Overseer's office, stowed away on the terminal, there's a command called Open Sacrificial Chamber. The desk raises and the floor slides backwards in a mechanical performance, revealing the dark underbelly of this metal monster, and it looks like this is where they were sent down. It's time to feed the pig. A long tunnel, empty besides the silence, that's just as effective at showing you how secluded you are than the steel enclosure the Chosen Ones would waver through. As you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you'll hear the Vault's PA system chime in, practically beckoning you to go towards this light. And there literally is a light at the end of the tunnel as you're walking down here, so you know it's not going to end well.
The light is calming and puts your mind at ease. Go to the light.
They reach the end and enter a new place. A chair and table with a bottle of scotch await them in an uncannily empty room. A screen is watching the Overseer now as they gaze back at its theatrics.
Greetings, martyr, and welcome. If you're here now, it means you've been offered up as a sacrifice so that your vault can continue to thrive. Currently, you may be feeling sad or angry. Perhaps you never got to have grandkids, or to enjoy the pleasures of a fresh cigar. But march with your chin held high, soldier, and remember that each of us has an important role to play. For some people, their role might be to heal the sick. For others, it might mean they will drive a race car or fly a rocket ship. And some of us are meant to forfeit our lives for the good of the people. Sure, it might not be as fun as driving a race car, but it's every bit as important. Let's take a moment to reflect on the moments that made your life worth living. Think about that time you kissed your steady girl for the first time under the bleachers at the big game. Or when you snuck out after curfew to catch that new flick that your parents wouldn't let you see because it was too scary. Boy, were they right. And who could forget when you met the love of your life? What a looker. These are just examples. Do you feel that feeling stirring in your chest as you think of these things? Good. What you are feeling is peace. You've led a great life. Living it has been its own reward. But it is only the beginning. Close your eyes now and imagine what joys await you in the next life. The afterlife. Can you see them? Good.
The walls open, the Overseer is shredded, the beast has been fed, and will go hungry again soon. Vault 11 is less of a study in how to best torture humans, and more about how to push them so they're able to take the gloves off and do it themselves, in order to spare their own lives. This social experiment, it feels messed up to even call it that, quite literally feeds people to Vault-Tec. It's their vault and their rules, each sacrifice being swallowed up to satiate their hateful, sadistic curiosity. This is what I meant earlier about Vault-Tec being evil. They knew what switches to flick for people to perform their messed up rituals and go mad whilst doing it, with everyone breaking under this corporation's crushing weight, except for one. That guy we know nothing about, who managed to survive societal hell, get back up, and vigorously go on to try and help a world that plummeted into a dark reality. There are more of these vaults, many more tame than this, many just as bad, if not worse than this, all crafted by them, and the people in these are puppeteered by the wicked hands of Vault-Tec. For Vault 11, it was nothing short of a brutal, twisted massacre. At least one got away, and was determined to go against them. As for the others, they never got to know the lie and torture they were having to live. Not the full extent of it, anyway. Maybe, just maybe, if more people of the Wasteland kept looking and listening to survivors of the Megacorp, like our nameless dweller of Vault 11, behind the bloodstains and smoky fire, they might just be able to make out the insidious smile of Vault-Tec. On a random city block surrounded by the ruins of everyday life is a house. Were you expecting more build up here? That's it. Sapped of colour and character, it's simply a house. The McClellan family townhome stands as one of the least destroyed buildings, and that's saying something given how it looks. We have the sign still readable and the door still standing, plus you can at least tell what this building was. Like I said, just a house. That's it then. There's no quest for this or location discovered coming up on your HUD to tell you this is somewhere important or worthwhile. In fact, this hollowed out home is not even marked on the map. It's simply treated as a stone in the road. However unimportant this might seem, to me it's one of the most significant and existentially charged locations in all of Fallout, and can be found in Fallout 3. I gently opened the door, and it looked even worse in here than I imagined. Oh my god. It's an extremely small interior with scraps of junk and paper on the floor, a few distinct objects lying around that tell us a family actually lived here in this family house. Maybe being a detective is my true calling in life. Right next to the door is a baby's cot. Yeah. An ironing board, sofa with a coffee table that has a book on it called Lying Congressional Style, looks like the owner of the house was a chronic doomer, and many other things scattered. There might be something in here, so it's best we proceed with caution. What's more, there are scuffed photo frames with no pictures in them, showing that the family have perished from the war. It took away their memories and their legacy has faded. Everything is stripped away by decay and grit, from the walls to the colour of the objects. It's so muted, and being here makes you feel as unclean as a League of Legends player. All the perished wallpaper and furniture have blended into a mucky yellow haze. The only real good source of light coming through is from the natural daylight peeking through the gaps of the wooden planks on the windows. The room is empty enough that it starts to feel Backrooms-esque. Yes, I know, exceptional trying to make a video without mentioning the Backrooms reference, it's impossible, but come on, look at it. There's just enough to go off of, and given the colour grading and old gen graphics lacking sufficient detail, it serves to give you an ominous vibe that creeps up out of nowhere. And I'm sure there are many more experiences in games where it feels like this. Some that come to mind are Bully, around the empty parts of school, or in the beach house. That place just doesn't feel right. The classic Gmod Construct, and for some, the old Animal Crossing games late at night. It's a very difficult feeling to describe, but it's unpleasant, and you're expecting something to jump you. And maybe it will. The kitchen, once again, is consumed by the rust, grit, rot, mold, whatever you can think of here, the room is covered in it. The fridge has a lot of the pre-war consumerist products like the Nuka-Colas and the Blamco mac and cheeses, etc. The usual way of life before the boom. Up the stairs and into the room past the cracked door bodyguard, all we have is a double bed, where the couple that owned it would relax together, sleep, and hanky-spanky. There's a chair here in the corner of the room, which might suggest some odd implications. Once again, look at these rooms. Look at how they've been flayed of their substance and character. Detailed enough to be recognisable, but not enough to be comforting. And Mr. Handy sleeps inside a gloomy room and there's a terminal at your fingertips to use it. The steel servant was programmed to carry out the chores and duties of a typical nuclear family household, and you can turn it on and tell it to carry out these mundane tasks still. The first is to walk Muffy, the family dog. Telling him to do that, he'll arise from his rest and casually move to the front door. Following him, you'll see him glide over to the rubble, round to the back garden, where he joyfully is saying to the family canine that it's time for a walk. But Muffy is charred and unresponsive, as Mr. Hands, painfully ignorant to what's happened, keeps looking for him.
Time for your walk, family pet. Perhaps you'll manage to run away from me today. I might be able to come home without you.
If you don't command him otherwise, he'll be doing this non-stop. It's eerie, to put it frankly. You can also go and get the groceries, in which he'll move down the street to a destroyed city and hover over a heap of bricks and stone. There's nothing for him to get now. Then the last one of note, read the children a bedtime poem. There's one more room in this house I've not mentioned, and if this emptiness around here was putting you on edge, then I don't blame you. It's been way too quiet here. Where is it? The putrid hellspawn or crazy raider with a pirate hook arm or something that's gonna jump out? Let's take a look in the final room. Mr. Handy will go there to read the children that poem. Brace yourself for it.
There will come...
Oh. there was nothing there. No monster, no raider pirate with a peg leg, no anything like that. In fact, there's been nothing truly threatening or evil in this house at all. Just the remains of a family and a child. A lost one that was clearly ignorant to the cruel events that unfolded. They might have been asleep at the time, but now they're in a slumber. Before you can even really process it, with the same level of obliviousness as with Muffy, Mr. Handy recites a poem to lighten the mood.
There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pool singing at night, and wild plum trees in tremulous white. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire, and not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it is done. Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly. And spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone. How may I serve you, master? I really want to.
Ah, never mind. Just from hearing those delicately written words, you can tell that this is a sad, sad poem. I'm about to become your English literature teacher, be lucky it's not Monica, and dive into this poem real quick.
Is this some kind of sick joke?
It's relevant, I promise. The poem he just read was called There Will Come Soft Rains, released by Sarah Teasdale in 1918, that in such few words conveys so much and sends an impactful message. The basic gist of it is talking about how when war wipes out humanity, nature does not care. The birds and rodents, the earth's crust, and the many things that sprout out of it, clouds, weather, all of it will go on. Time will pass and nature will prove how unimportant we are in the long run. Then we look over to a short story of the same name by Ray Bradbury in 1950, about a house with robotic servants that functions on its own as if nothing is wrong, because it can't be aware of what's happened after a nuclear war. It's one of the only houses somewhat standing, much like our house in game. The breakfast is made, the lists of responsibilities are read aloud, and the day passes with the robot doing its thing. The lack of human intervention stirs up a lingering emptiness that the story hammers hard on. It makes you see the spooky liminal solitude. The owner of the house, Mr. McClellan, has an office in which he's asked by the machine what poem he'd like read to him. No one responds, and the robot gives a
"Fine, I'll do it myself,"
and picks one at random.
There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pool singing at night.
It begins reading that same poem, morbidly fitting for the situation going on. The structure catches fire and eventually burns down. The house still trying to act normal until day breaks, until there's nothing left. Only a wall remains and the broken machinery shouts into the empty air. Today is August 5th, 2026. Today is August 5th, 2026. Today is... Like the poem and story itself, the McClellan family house in Fallout 3 gives so much interesting perspective and existential food for thought in such a small package. Like, this small house is literally all there is to it, and it still hits as hard as a Black Mirror episode. What makes this so impactful is that it's what would happen to the everyman. To you and me. Most of us wouldn't have the privilege, or should I say misfortune given everything we've covered, of surviving this. I know I sure as hell wouldn't. I'm a YouTuber. I'd probably be strapped to the bomb. However, seeing the remains of a simple family and finding the pieces that adds the human connection, that credibility and soul to the residency is what makes this a well-crafted horror piece, yet dually heartbreaking. It's not supernatural, otherworldly, full of cannibalistic raiders, nothing like that. It's grounded and gritty. You're simply just being shown the raw effect of nuclear tragedy. You're seeing this family's past, or should I say the fragments of their past that stand there as hollow as vacant temples. That kind of sadness on such an unfathomable scale is enough to make thinking about even a fraction of this heavy enough. The McClellan family house is here. We've seen it. How many more McClellan houses are out there though? How many more are even standing? This is merely one of the many McClellan families and their homes, and millions more have been demolished by the war, steamrolling them away to make room for the frightful landscape we set foot on, where those connections died and savagery began. By seeing the intimacy of one humble home, it makes it even harder to reconcile with the grim thought that this has happened in the millions across the world. It's a somber reminder of the comforts of our world and how many people with thoughts, feelings, their own lives and dreams were there. And then at the drop of a bomb...
Oh my god!
weren't. Well, I'm sure that's not the kind of video you were expecting for me to upload, but if you've made it this far, I'm guessing it's because you enjoyed it, or at least I hope you did. I made a community post a while back, and it basically just asked if there's any other content besides Call of Duty Zombies that you want to see, and it got a lot more support than I was expecting. I honestly didn't think it would get so much feedback, but it did, and the comments and the suggestions were really good, and I wanted to take them in, and I thought, you know what, maybe I will do a different video, something different from Call of Duty Zombies, something that I can have some fun with here. And a few of the comments did suggest Fallout, and Fallout is something I've wanted to make a video on for a while because I love Fallout, and with the TV show making it even more popular, it's totally had me back into a Fallout phase, and I thought that the Horrors of video would be perfect for it. Doing this project has very much been a leap of faith for me, and I hope you get the same satisfaction of watching this new content as I did taking the gamble and making it. This was a real palate cleanser to make, and if you want me to do any more videos on other games, then let me know. It can be icebergs, horrors of, just general critique / analysis of games, whatever it is. Maybe even some more facts and lore to sleep to, something like that. And I also made this video for myself, to prove that I can do something different, to do it because I enjoy it, to do it because I think it would really make for a good video. And it's something I just wanted to do. And hopefully, you enjoyed it too. If this video does well enough, I will consider a part 2. Fallout is huge, and I even have ideas for a part 2 already, so if it gets enough support and good feedback, and it's in demand, then I definitely will think about it. As for other games, I was thinking of covering Elden Ring or Dying Light next, in whatever format I might do a video on, but safe to say it'll probably be some long video because I have a lot to say about these games, but these ideas are very up in the air right now. I've still got the COD Zombies Iceberg 6 I want to do, and other stuff like that. And I'm not going to stop doing COD Zombies obviously, but you've got to admit the zombie scene has been absolutely cooked. I just felt like I had to do this. But I really hope you enjoyed. If there's any other games you want me to cover, then just comment down below, because this has been a blast to make. Okay, I'm going to get to the conclusion now. Smash the like button, comment and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell too to stay notified whenever I upload, all that stuff. Also consider becoming a channel member. Therapy session over. Okay, conclusion time. It really says something when a game lets you have crazy amounts of fun using a mini nuke launcher to blow mutants up and purging random camps for loot in a giant mech suit, but then also shows you something that humbles you, makes you exhale and think about how devastating this situation would truly be, immersing you in a sinking state of dread, kicking a mole rat 50 yards away, discovering Caesar's Legion for the first time. See what I mean? It can be so morbidly funny when it wants to be, or so vile at the drop of a hat, and it keeps me on my toes. And this carries through to any of the Fallout games, from the ones back in the 90s with about 8 pixels on screen, to the new experimental Fallout 76. It adds so much depth to these games, and I'll never not feel the unrelenting force of the nuclear wasteland that's been crafted over the years and we get to explore. Taking on the role of survivors, we get to see how bad it all is, and through all of the pain and suffering, we keep going. In all of the things I've covered, if it wasn't already obvious enough, maybe you'll see how truly insane a lot of this grim post-war world is. What a dark, savage, unrelenting land. But hey, at least the radio sounds nice.